Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Greer, CEO of Secure Content Technologies, and I am really happy to be here today with Josh Brown, the Chief Information Security Officer of Spectrum Labs. Welcome, Josh.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Karen. It's great to meet
Abs-
you.
Absolutely. So we have a rather lively and I think captivating discussion today, and it's really about building proof that your cybersecurity program actually works.
Mm.
And Spectrum Labs brings a very unique and powerful approach to this that Josh and I are really anxious to kind of talk to you guys about today. But Josh, just you yourself have been a CISO for quite some time. What are the topics that you've seen that are like the hardest for you to deal with as a CISO?
Yeah, I think one of them, and it gets to the core of our mission at Spectrum, and I know we'll get into that, but it's providing assurance both to yourself and to the C-suite, to the board of directors, that the investments that they've made in security tooling are working the way you expect them to. And we wanted to get away from this idea that you can, you check once a year for your SOC 2 or something like that, right? Like everybody has these regulatory requirements that you have to validate certain things. But in our view, the way we're going about doing that is entirely wrong. And so when you get to a place where you need to know if your tooling is working properly, it's been configured the way you expected, that basically that your investments are returning value, it's a very stressful thing because you have to go check, 20, 30, 40 different places. And those are just point in time, right? So sure, I can have my team go take screenshots of all the dashboards, right? But all that tells us is at that exact moment in time, the thing was configured the way I expect it to be. And further, I think industry-wide, most tools out there in security have been optimized for operations, which is natural. Like it makes sense. They tell you what's wrong right now. But if we have an incident, we find out after the fact, sometimes really far after the fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I need to know when that incident actually happened, which might have been, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, months ago, even, that my tools were configured the way I expected them to be then. And no other tool tells you that right now. So, as a CISO, when I would go to the board and give an update on the status of the program, the questions often meandered down different lines that I think are not ultimately where boards and senior leadership teams need to be focusing their efforts. They want to know, they all ask the same thing, right? Which they say, are we secure? Which is really not the right question, but we can talk about that separately, right? The right question really is, are we resilient? Which means in our philosophy, are my tools working the way I expected them to, right? Is that money that I've invested doing the things I expected? If my tooling fails, my CIO wants to know, are my backups going to save us, right? Bail us out. And then the CFO is thinking, I don't know what these two jokers are talking about. I want to know if both of them have failed to do their jobs properly, will insurance make us whole? And so we match that CISO, CIO, CFO triad to proofs. And we think bringing all that together is what constitutes business resilience. And that's really what we're trying to prove. And so we're trying to change that conversation from an are we secure to are we resilient?
Mm-hmm.
And we want to provide proof, not promises, not prognostications, right? So every CISO I know, when they get asked that question about are we secure, they answer the same way, which is, well, it depends. Right? It depends on what you mean. It depends on what time of day it is. Like there's all of these factors. And boards don't like that answer, and CISOs don't like giving it. And so what we need to be talking about is, look, I can tell you at any point exactly what the state of our controls is. And if you're not happy with the state of the controls, now we have a different conversation, right? We have a conversation about either changing our risk appetite to accept more risk. So, because boards are never unhappy if the dashboard is all green, they're unhappy when it's red, right? So we either need more resources to turn some of that red into green, or we need to adjust our risk appetite so that we're okay with more of it being red. But either way, it's a business-centered conversation about risk and impact of the business rather than about colors of dashboards or things like that.
Yeah, and when I was first introduced to the Spectrum offering, I was just kind of floored by how much of a game changer it is, right, for companies really of all sizes. How does Spectrum specifically help that CISO or
Mm.
CIO or CFO solve that business problem? Like, there are
Yeah.
specific things that you guys do really, really well.
Yeah. It's a great question. So we, what we've done, the bulk of the time spent, so the company was founded about 4 years ago. We only came out of stealth with our flagship product at the end of last October. So it's pretty new to the market. But the bulk of those early years was on designing the data fabric, the token architecture, and the API gateway. And that's a lot of babble, right? And I know we don't want to get into that level, but one of the real problems was, the average security department has dozens of tools, and those tools are all structured in different ways. And so we had to create basically a platform that would normalize that data and make it accessible in whatever ways the applications wanted to take it. So we wanted to be able to come in and overlay a company's tooling, whatever that tooling is, bring all that data into a structure that again, made it all common and made it so that we could report on it in a meaningful way in real time. And so when we do that, we're eliminating the need to go sit and log into 40 different dashboards, right? We're providing an abstraction layer that shows you very simply, are we red or are we green? Which means for each control, is it configured the way I expect it to be? And everybody's environment's going to be different, right? And so those things that can mean very different things to different people. But what we've designed and built and now executed on is a platform that enables each customer to define exactly what its success criteria are and then monitor against those success criteria. And so you don't have to guess if your tools are configured properly, and so we're providing proof. And further, we're writing that proof into tamper-proof tokens. And these tokens collectively form what we call a passport. And so your passport has this state of posture for your environment over time. It becomes a proof ledger over time of what your actual state was. So if you need to go back 3 months and say, here's exactly how my tools were configured the day the bad guys did something awful, and share that with a regulator, an auditor, an assessor, an acquisition part, whatever it is, right? You can have confidence in knowing that this is proof of what went on, and we're trying to become that proof layer for everyone.
Josh, those are some really good points, and I feel like maybe if you could give some concrete examples that would kind of set the picture for the audience, it would give them a really great visual of the benefits.
Yeah. So Karen, it's been a challenge for us in terms of how we tell our story, because there's a lot of different value propositions depending on what lenses you're applying to the product and the platform. So the benefit for CISOs is, knowing that your controls are always effective and ready. But there's been another play that's been really interesting to see develop, and that's the third piece of the triad. I mentioned that security controls, backups, and insurability, right, are the three things that make resilience. So when you go to get cyber insurance, you answer a whole bunch of questions. You fill out a questionnaire. Some of the questions, and I've seen a ton of these in my career. Some of the questions don't totally make sense, and the more technical you are, the less sense they make sometimes. Yeah. I've seen insurers who ask things like, do you have email security licenses? They're not asking if it's deployed, how it's deployed. I've seen one say, do you have MFA everywhere? Like, what does that mean? And how do you honestly say yes or no to that one, right? And so I mentioned earlier that one of the real fears is I've answered all these questions to the best of my abilities as honestly as I can, and I believe that they were true today. And now 6 months in the future, we have an incident. I don't know if they were true, if anything changed in that time frame, right? And so we've already announced some partnerships where we're helping customers have confidence in the answers that they're providing for their cyber insurance applications. And we take those cyber applications and we turn them into code. And what that allows us to do is extract the technical requirements, and we call these journeys. So in marketing terms, right, journeys, anything that gets you from point A to point B. But journeys are just bundles of requirements. And so we take their cyber insurance application, we turn that into a journey, and then the customer gets to see every single day if they're meeting all the requirements in their cyber application. And when we showed this to insurers and brokers, they were so hungry to have that amount of data. You know, if you think about, I think it was Progressive was the company a few years ago that announced this. You could as a customer, you could choose to have this dongle that you plug into your car, and it would basically tell them if you're driving like an idiot or not.
I remember that.
Now, obviously, some people are not going to be interested in providing that level of transparency, but the trade-off is if you're not driving like an idiot, you're going to get better rates. Obviously, the other side of that is if you are, you're going to get worse rates. But you know, insurers are having to rely on attestations, promises that I have MFA, it's deployed everywhere, whatever that means. I have email security licensing, it's deployed properly. And so what we're starting to see is insurers not paying out claims fully or timely because they're finding misrepresentations in those cyber applications. There's a big news story a few months back. Some city government, I think it was in Indiana, but I'm not sure, had a ransomware event. And they had attested in their application that they had MFA everywhere. And when they got audited, it turns out it was only 80% deployed or something like that. You know, and could that have been a legitimate error? Sure, right? But the ultimate thing is when you're in a bad place, you want to know that your insurance is going to catch you. That's the final fail-safe. And so knowing that your controls are configured properly is a huge benefit. And we already have insurers that are giving, you know, real benefits to customers that onboard with our platform and do this. Lower retention, no retainer for IR engagements, you know, things like that. And so there's actual benefits coming back to the customers that can make it more affordable to get insurance, and they have a higher degree of comfort knowing that their insurance is going to pay out if things go badly.
So what does it take a company to onboard with Spectrum? Like,
yeah, we've tried to make it as easy as possible, and I know everybody says that, right? So we have, you know, all of our platform was built custom from the ground up. The data fabric, the token infrastructure, and then the API gateway. And the API gateway is key. Again, don't want to get into technical details. I'm happy to have that conversation with anyone who wants to have it. But essentially, we lay over whatever your security tooling is. So as long as those tools are modern tools that have an API, we can connect to them. And anything that those tools expose in that API, we can set as criteria to evaluate against. And this is, you know, I'll age myself a little bit. It's like an erector set or Lego, right? We can put those requirements together in any way you want to match what your requirements are. So I'll give you an example. MFA, everybody cares about having MFA. The insurance companies care about having MFA. It's an important, it's not a silver bullet, but it's a great way to lower your risk. And so we had a customer who came on. They were a Microsoft customer, and so they had Entra and they had a bunch of other stuff. And they were actually pretty sophisticated, and they had set up this policy. They had no administrative access that was persistent. So when someone needed administrative access, an account would be spun up in real time and permissioned with a 60-minute timeline, and then it would go away again. And so we were able to use the Microsoft Graph API and set up a series of criteria that said, okay, we want you to go look through every group that has administrative permissions in their domain and look for any account in any of those groups, and then check to see if any of those accounts has a lifetime of more than 60 minutes. And if it does, turn red. For other places that maybe are not that sophisticated, we're just looking to say, hey, is MFA applied to all of my user accounts? Is it applied to all of my external access points? And are we using strong methods? So if it sees that, you know, SMS or email as a second factor is enabled, it's going to turn red. We have a bunch of out-of-the-box criteria that we provide for every type of safeguard you might have. And they're all things that we can test without knowing anything about your environment. Are my backups encrypted, right? Are they immutable? I can totally tell that. Do I have logging enabled, right? All of these things we can test. Then so in terms of getting onboarded, as easy as each tool makes it for us to connect to their API, we make it as easy as possible for the customer to connect. Sometimes it's as easy as providing, this is like in Google land, they've got an ability to set an administrator account with just an email address that you put in, and it gives read-only access. So that's all we typically ever need is read-only access. Other places are a little more complicated, but in general, per tool, 10 to 20 minutes to connect the tool up. And our engineering team white gloves that experience with you to walk through it and make it as easy as possible. So getting those tools connected is really, really straightforward. In terms of us building new connections, we have over 100 tools integrated in the platform already. I was on with a CISO yesterday, and he was onboarding, his company, and he gave us a list of like 23 tools, and a bunch of them I had never even heard of, which is pretty cool, right? Because there's all this innovation in the marketplace. And we built 15 integrations for him in just a matter of hours and had him up and running. So the way we've architected the platform makes it trivial for us to build new integrations, and it makes it as easy as possible for customers to get those integrations up and running.
Oh, that's very cool. So I don't think we can actually have a discussion today without AI. And I'd like to hear from you, like, how does AI show up for Spectrum? How do you make use of it? And do you secure AI initiatives and anything else in the AI space that you want to share that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, AI could fill an entire show, right? Or multiple shows. There's so much exciting stuff happening there. As of right now, we don't use AI to touch any of a customer's tools directly. So we're connecting to those tools I mentioned via API. We're pulling down a full API response, and we're writing that response into tokens with your state. So if you ever need to export it, whoever you're exporting and providing that proof to will see the full chain of evidence, not just, we don't want to be some sort of a black box in your environment, right? We're completely transparent about what we do and how we do it. And so we provide all of that on a daily basis written into those immutable tokens. What we do use AI for is analysis on your data after it's been extracted and written into your tokens and your passport. And so we have Spectrum Intelligence built into the platform where you can ask it all sorts of things about your data. So you could say, hey, what are the top 10 things my CISO needs to worry about going into his board meeting next week? And it'll generate a full report with details for you. Or you can say, hey, what are the biggest risks or open gaps or, things like that I need to worry about? So that's the use case, the primary use case right now. We've also designed the platform to be really easy to build your own applications on top of. So you may have seen the big press release from Sophos last week, where they're pushing all of their MDR customers for renewal through our platform, and we're enabling them to get quotes for cyber insurance through the platform. First time this has ever been done. And so they'll see in real time, if you have MDR, here's the discount you're getting on your insurance as a result of that, because Sophos MDR customers have something like a 0.01% breach frequency. It's incredibly low, and it's a real value, right? The insurers love it because they're getting a better risk pool. And of course, the customers love it because they're getting better rates. So where we're headed on all of this is we also have this rich metadata about how incidents occur. And this is through another application that was actually the first one we launched, which is a collaboration platform for companies, their insurers, their legal teams, and their incident response team. So if they have a breach, this is a collaboration space to work through that breach together, share evidence, et cetera. And so from that, we tokenized about 40% of all cyber claims in the US last year. So we have really rich metadata about why breaches happen, not what people tell their insurer about what happened, what actually happened. We have that raw data. And so we're able to offer insights to customers by mining that data with AI and looking at their firmographics as well. So we can say, hey, you're in this market segment, you're this size company, and we know what your safeguards are because you've onboarded them into our platform. So, hey, we've noticed you don't have MDR. And if you did that, not only could we lower your cyber insurance rates by 15%, but it's going to radically reduce the chance of a breach, right? So there are things that we can offer them that way. We can push them towards partners that offer great value and can improve their risk posture. So there's all sorts of stuff we can do there. What's coming very soon is the ability for customers to build their own journeys. So I mentioned, we build a journey for customers around their cyber insurance application. Journeys are just bundles of requirements. They could be your own internal best practices, but they also can be, any compliance framework out there. So we're actually pretty deep in the development. We're in the QA process right now of a workflow builder where customers can either chat with our Spectrum Intelligence agent to build their own journeys and potentially onboard their own safeguards automatically, or you can just drag and drop an MD file or a PDF or an Excel with requirements in it, and it'll build the journey for you. And it's pretty cool and powerful to see how that works. We're basically just trying to leverage the data layer that we've built and enable customers to do what they need to do. So one of the things, this is kind of a funny story, but initially when we were going to market, because we're trying to be this proof layer for companies, right? We were resistant to the idea of doing custom reporting or exporting data, because once the data leaves our system, we can't ensure that it's immutable, like hasn't been tampered with anymore, right?
Right.
But customers wanted that. And so, we are API driven. We created some metrics API endpoints that the customer can access. So we can throw together a dashboard for you in a matter of minutes. But if you're handy with, say, Claude, you can also point Claude at your own metrics endpoint and say, I want a dashboard that has these features, and it'll just blow it out for you. The Sophos app that we launched last week, that's a custom app built on top of our platform for Sophos. And we think we're going to have, more and more of those. And we're really eager at B-Sides and RSA. We'll be there, in a few weeks to show engineers how easy it is to build on top of the proof layer that we've built.
That's so exciting. And I know I have a lot of customers that are super excited about this because they like to get their hands in there, and they want to really see live and great data for themselves, not just what the report says, right? So I feel like for a lot of those guys that really, and gals that want to get in there and be a part of it, it'll be really fun for them as well as eye-opening.
Yeah. And, to alleviate some of the fears around privacy, of course, we have very strong crypto controls. Every company's data is encrypted with a company-specific key. We encrypt at the token level and the field level. And that causes some challenges for pointing AI at it, right? But we also have a bring your own agent model. So you'll be able, with that workflow builder and other AI tools that we'll be introducing, you can bring your own AI agent, and it stays within the context of your relationship with those agentic companies, right? We really, we're trying to drive customer benefits on top of the substantial engineering effort that we've put into building all of this substrata for what's coming to market, right? So, peace of mind with continuous compliance. I think Gartner is referring to us as continuous posture management or continuous posture validation. That is a piece of the puzzle. But there's so much more that customers can get out of this. And it's really exciting to see the different ways that customers are starting to engage and drive this. I'll give you another example. We haven't talked about incident response firms, but we had a firm that they only work with customers that are Microsoft shops. Okay, that's a lot of shops out there, right? And 80+% of their business was doing incident response on business email compromise cases, which as a CISO, I found a little depressing. But that's the reality, right? And so they had this motion that they ran with new customers who came in who had just experienced a business email compromise. So we took that motion and extracted all the technical requirements and built a journey for them. And so now they can onboard a customer and run through the hardening process to harden against business email compromise automatically, right? And even better, the customer gets that journey as a leave behind, so they can see when the engagement's over every day, they can see that they're still hardened against that attack path, right? And so there's all of these really interesting synergies among different players, the insurers, the instant responders. We're getting tons of traction with private equity firms, which is something that hadn't even occurred to me initially, but right. PE firms will typically have minimum security requirements for all their portfolio companies. And so they have to invest a substantial amount of effort, either annually, biannually, quarterly, auditing those firms to make sure they're living up to those requirements, right? Well, now we can take those requirements, we turn them into a journey. The holdco passes that journey on to all of their portfolio companies. those portfolio companies go ahead and onboard those tools. And that's part of the journey. It walks them through the process. And because of the way we've encrypted the tokens, because each company owns their own data, right? The holding company doesn't own their portfolio company's data, the portcos do. They can choose to share just the fields that are relevant to those minimum security requirements. So they're not oversharing. They don't have to provide, all the kinds of documentation they would have to provide before. And the parent company, the holdco, can now know, like, hey, you're doing all the things that we're requiring of you, and we don't have to invest the time to audit you. We don't have to waste your time with the audit, and we're getting daily affirmation that that's the case, not a point in time snapshot of what may or may not be true.
Oh, so many exciting topics.
It's really exciting. Yeah.
So,
I didn't think I'd be back at a startup at this point in my career. I started my career at a startup, but it's been really, really fun helping build this.
Well, I mean, this, like I said before, I feel like it's a game changer. I truly do. And I'm incredibly excited to be partnering with you to bring this to my clients. So
Totally delighted to have you.
To anyone that's listening, we'll share my contact information. If you'd like to learn more, have a demo done, anything along those lines, please reach out to me and I will set that up. And stay tuned, because Josh and I will be doing more of these with some more exciting topics.
I can't wait.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.